Jews still standing with Israel? The government of Israel may claim to represent you and protect, quote, our kind, but Jewish people are not synonymous with the Israeli state. You as an individual Jewish person do not bomb aid workers, journalists, medical infrastructure, and refugee camps, bulldoze homes, indiscriminately kill children, or torture people. You didn't blow up an ally's ship, plot and commit terror attacks, including on civilians, try to work with literal Nazis, displace hundreds of thousands of people, or prop up Hamas as a power play. That's individuals working for the Israeli government, hallucinating magical authority and claiming to act in your name. Conversely, the government of Israel is not your family that was persecuted, hunted in pogroms, and shipped off to death camps, as members of my family were, but the people running this government desperately need you to believe that they're synonymous with you, your ancestors, your faith, and your very sense of self, so you continue to view this government as a victim rather than a perpetrator. This government exploits your family's suffering and trauma to maintain your support for the destruction of innumerable families. Likewise, this government needs you to believe that all Palestinians are Hamas or whatever authority claims to act on their behalf. To say nothing of the highly misleading narrative that a majority of Palestinians or Gazans elected Hamas, would you want to be punished for the actions and policies of politicians in the ruling class you voted for, or for those others elected with a slim majority? Speaking of Hamas, it's obviously absolutely wrong to kill civilians, and when you support the same behavior because, well, your enemy did it, you can't claim the moral high ground. Further, the government of Israel doesn't even protect Jews. Its agents abuse not just Palestinians, but also Jews who dare to protest, and this state keeps endangering Jews there by radicalizing surrounding people through indiscriminate violence, seething collectivism, and dehumanization. Exactly what Israel's proponents claim the state was created to guard against. However much you may identify with Israel, I repeat, you are literally not Israel, no matter how hard governments around the world, not just Israel, try to convince people that
we, the people, are the government.
There's one class of mortal humans who believe they have special authority to inflict violence and control others because they work for government. And they're the rest of us. On that note, Israel has no right to self-defense because Israel is not a self, nor is any other government. This gross, diluted propaganda gets otherwise decent people to support heinous acts out of fear and weaponized collectivism. Likewise, not all Germans, Chinese people, Russians, Americans, or others commit unspeakable atrocities. A small group of people calling themselves governments and ruling powers do, cheered on by the poor souls duped by pro-government collectivist propaganda, who at times even commit that violence themselves. Additionally, we as Americans are not arming the government of Israel despite their ongoing extermination of Palestinians. Politicians and their defense contractor cronies are. To the Jews conflating themselves with the state of Israel, please get a grip and stop lending your identity to a government that abuses its, quote, own people and eradicates those it deems less than human. And to some of the actual anti-Semites, not people who condemn Israel's condemnable behavior, Israel isn't abusive and corrupt because it's run by Jews. It's abusive and corrupt because it's a government, and all governments necessarily rely on violence to assert authority, which invariably leads to abuses of power. So one last time to the Jews standing with Israel. You are not the Israeli government, and you're not committing these atrocities, but your blind support for this state allows its agents' abuses to continue in a sick irony where past hatred, collectivism, and brutality are used as fanatic justifications for present hatred, collectivism, and brutality.
Welcome to the Daily Wrap-Up, a concise show dedicated to bringing you the most relevant, independent news as we see it from the last 24 hours.
Wednesday, October 2nd, 2024. Thank you for joining me today. Got to start with Carrie Wedler. Somebody out there talks almost as fast as me, maybe faster. It's hard to tell, but outstanding. Always doing an outstanding job of just rapid fire, breaking down the facts. And as a Jew herself, speaking about this, telling you that if you're blinded by the illusion out there around any number of things she was highlighting there, it's just like with the COVID-19 conversation. You are the majority. They're trying desperately to convince you that you are not, that you are the crazy fringe lunatic, whether that's about seeing through the two-party illusion, recognizing Israel is carrying out genocide, or your own government carrying out illegal occupation and war crimes around the world. Everybody sees these things, different flavors. And this is, I mean, you could call that wishful thinking. You could say that's maybe hyperbolic. I genuinely think that's the provable reality. Just like I said during COVID, just like I'm genuinely saying now around elections and two-party illusion. I think people, for lack of options, get driven into these things. So to start with her there, I just wanted to make sure we kind of set the tone for not just that one topic. We're going to talk about a few different things today, and gosh darn it, it's going to probably be a long show. So as always, I'll do my best to get done as fast as I can. Not really. I mean, today I'm probably going to sit down and let this go as long as it does, because I think it's important, and we haven't had a show in a couple of days. So I think it's important, but really feeling under the weather the last so many days. So it's been difficult for me to even been trying to keep up on a lot of these things. Now, this story we're going to start with today around Georgia is something it's been going on for, almost a week, maybe 4 to 5 days. And it's important that I go, not, breaking news coverage on this, but something that really kind of floored me when I went through this in depth today around, because, I have a, whether it's just about medical freedom, whether it's about environmental disasters coming, really not even just the disaster itself, because these things can just happen. Sometimes it is just incompetence or, the story that sometimes we try to find within these events. But oftentimes the story really is just incompetence, that they should have done something more. The government loosened restriction, loosened any number of things that are the story, right? The fact that it happened, like with East Palestine, obviously is where my mind is going. That's a huge, and was then and is a huge story that went nowhere, obviously, because government corruption, and that alone is probably the reason it didn't happen. Nobody went to jail. But because of I think, quite frankly, as I'm going to play a clip about today, this budding fake independent media field absolutely same with like Lahaina, for example. Very valid reasons to get into a lot of these peripheral parts of the story, which are fascinating, entertaining, but also very important, because it's possible that there was a lot more going on there. And I do think, as you watch my coverage, I'm convinced there was more to that story. But when you start getting into the ridiculousness of the Peters of the world out there, the way that they covered this, it gets people looking for something above the criminality that's right in front of you. And I think there's part of a design there, whether they know it or not, where, like I've said then, missing the forest for the trees. Why did nobody go to jail for the overt criminality around how that went down? The lack of, they're saying it's not playing on YouTube. Hold on, I won't lose my point. The lack of accountability around East Palestine. Let me double check this really quickly. I think I know what the problem was. Sometimes, it's not that I honestly care that much about YouTube these days, but sometimes they have a redundancy where they have to it'll make me check things twice or refresh things twice. It's just, I'm telling you, it's because they know what